Welcome to Halachot Nidah. This will be part 21 of the class. Today's topic, Rav David Yosef Shlita in the Sefer Taharat Abayit, will discuss about checking with a bidika cloth. Now, in the previous class, in part 20, we started speaking about on which blood to separate. Now, whatever halachot we saw over here, we're going to see the similar halachot in part 21. So let me just go over a very important point that we need to remember. Isha shara'ata ketem beli hargasha. If you had a woman that saw a stain without a sensation, now when can a woman see a stain? That is specifically if it's on a white garment or on her body, or on a bed sheet, but it has to be white. And it has to be the size of a nickel. Then we're going to tell you that this woman became impure, meaning she's not allowed to have relations with her husband, hug, kiss, touch. They can't do anything. They can't even pass things from one to another. That's what a ketem does. If, let's say, a woman saw blood on a red underwear or any other colored garment, even if it's, the size of a quarter or the size of 10 quarters, that does not make her impure because she does not have a sensation. So in our situation, Rav David Yosef Shlita is telling us, Isha shara'ata ketem beli hargasha. A woman who saw a stain, meaning on a white garment, which is at least the size of a nickel, without a sensation, because I needed to make her tameh. And after one period, which is a 12-hour period, or two periods, which is a 24-hour period, the time of her veset came, meaning the time of her period when she's anticipating it came. But now, this time around, she did see blood with a sensation. So let's put it like this. A day ago, she saw a stain, but it was without a sensation. A day later, she sees blood with a sensation. Even though this ketem that she saw a day earlier was tameh, meaning it was on a white garment and the size of a nickel, this that she saw the ketem, you can't take it into consideration or into calculation that you have to worry for it the next time around. Either should it be the Ona Benonit, or should it be the Yom HaChodesh, or should I start counting from it Vetzet Aflaga? You don't look at it as nothing, as if it didn't exist. The husband only needs to separate from his wife on the blood the following month, and the blood that she saw with a sensation. So Rabotai, whatever we're seeing right over here in part 20, again, we did record this. If you guys want to have the whole thing good and clear, because it goes much more, please listen to part 20 of the Shur, and then go back to today's class, part 21. You'll have a very nice appreciation of understanding part 21. Let it just download, and we're going to get right into it. Bottom line, what we're going to start seeing today is like this. Similarly, a woman, now there's a very big difference when a woman sees a stain. I need that the stain should be at least the size of a nickel. But when a woman comes to checking herself, it's completely different. Once a woman checks herself, the blood that's on the bidika will make her tameh. But what we want to see today, can this checking next time around hold back the husband from sleeping with his wife on that day? Okay, one more time. If, let's say, the woman did a bidika on the first day of the month, right? Let's say 30 days later, does he have to start counting from that day 30 days later? Or does he have to really start counting from the time when a woman saw blood with a sensation? So just like we saw in part 20, you don't have to worry for the ketim. So we're going to see today in our class, part 21, you don't have to worry about the bidika cloth. What does that mean? You don't have to worry about the bidika cloth? Meaning that, yes, she becomes tummy now, she becomes impure now. You can have her, I mean, you can sleep with her, you can touch, you can kiss her, you can pass anything. But I don't have to consider this to be a day from the other days that I have to start counting. For example, for the Ona Benonit or the Yom HaChodesh or the Ves HaFlaga, I don't have to do all these things. It's as if this day doesn't exist. Yeah, at this time, I can't do anything with her. I can be with her, I cannot do anything. However, the next time around, when the same date or 30 days later from that time, I don't have to worry for that schedule. You know, if you really want to know where this happens a lot, you know, a lot of times, Be'ezrat Hashem, when a woman, let's say she has to go ahead and she has to do the bedika, because we'll see Be'ezrat Hashem B'lineder, not now, we'll see as we get to the bedika point, that when a woman is anticipating a period, she can't just go and sleep with her husband. For example, a woman is anticipating a period to come, let's say from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. I'm just giving you a random time. Right? Say on the 15th of March, whatever it is. Now let's say she didn't see the period. She didn't see no blood. What is she supposed to do? Before sunset, she's supposed to take an ed. Again, remember, Rabotai, we call this an ed, a white garment, a white cloth. She has to put it inside herself to make sure that it's clean, that she didn't have any blood passing through her uterus. Now, if she didn't do it, she still cannot sleep with her husband until she does it. Why am I saying this? Because today's class is going to happen very much where a woman has to go ahead and do the bedika on the anticipated cycle, or if she didn't do it then, she has to do it after, before having relations. But if she sees blood on the ed, she becomes tameh. But nevertheless, next time around, I don't have to be worried for that day or date. I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to start counting on the Benonit from that day, or the Yom HaChodesh, or Ves HaFlagot. It's as if that date does not exist by me. Okay? So that's what we're going to try to see today. If a woman saw blood through checking with a bedika cloth. Okay, one more time, guys. We did this before. So I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. This is the bedika cloth that a woman has to go ahead and she has to check herself with. If a woman went ahead and she saw blood by checking with the cloth, but she didn't feel, she didn't have any sensation that blood came out from her uterus. She sees blood on the cloth, but she didn't have any sensation. She didn't even know she was going to bleed. She just went ahead and she did the bedika because she wanted, let's say, to make sure that she's tahor for her husband and that no blood came that day. And now she sees the blood, but there's no sensation. Like we spoke about the sensations earlier in this shiur. And after one period, again a 12-hour period, or shtei onot, or a 24-hour period, I'm saying 12-hour period and 24-hour period because I'm using a perfect day. Because remember, by the Jewish calendar and by the Jewish time, it's seasonal minutes. All right, it could be 10 hours in a day, 14 hours at night. I'm just using 12-hour period and 24-hour period just to give us an idea how this works. And after one period or two periods, higia et vesta, came the time of a period where she's anticipating to see the blood. Vera'ata dam behargasha, but now she saw blood with a sensation. Very important, guys. Even though she becomes stomach from the time that she went out and she did the bedika, she shouldn't tell you, oh, you know, babe, I checked myself with the bedika. Oh yeah, I see blood. 3 hours later, she says there's no blood. The next day, she says there's no blood. The following day, she says there's no blood. Doesn't mean anything, Rabotai. Once she sees blood on the edge, she becomes tameh. Okay? Even though she becomes tameh from the time that she did the checking with the cloth, and like we said on top, she did see blood on it. Yeah? Nevertheless, minadin, according to the halacha, ein ri'at hadam harishona al yidei bedikat ha'ed nechshevet le'onat vesta. This, that she saw the first time blood on the checking of herself with the cloth, is not considered to be a period where I have to start taking it into consideration next time around. I don't take that into consideration. That day doesn't exist by me. ואין בעלה צריך לפרוש ממנה בחודש הבא. The husband does not need to separate from his wife the following month. אלא בעונת וסת ממש. Only at her prescribed vesed, where she really saw blood with a sensation. From there she's going to count Yom HaChodesh, on the Benonit, Ves Haflaga, etc. and so on and so forth, how we've been learning this whole time. Sheba'ar atadam behargasha, where the blood came with a sensation. So all Rav David Yosef Shlita is telling us like this, that if a woman went ahead and she did a checking with the cloth and she saw blood on it, she becomes impure to her husband. No kissing, no hugging, no touching, no passing. You can't even sleep on the same bed with your clothes on. All these things, Be'ezrat Hashem B'lineder, we will see. Nevertheless, do I look at that day as one of the days for Onu Benonit? Or do I look at that date for the Yom HaChodesh? Or do I start counting from there for the Veset Aflagot? Comes Rav David Yosef, he says absolutely not. Yet this checking of her period with the clothes made her tummy. But next time around, you don't have to worry about no Onu Benonit from that day, no Yom HaChodesh of that day, and no Veset Aflagot from that day. However, comes Rav David Yosef Shlita and he gives us sound advice. And he says like this, V'tov lahachmir b'kiyotze bazeh shera'at adam b'bidit ka'ed kodem vesta v'lefrosh memena gam be'oned b'dikat ha'ed v'gam be'oned sheba'a ra'at adam b'hargasham. Now, Rabotai, even though right over here we spoke about the halacha min hadin, okay, Rabotai, there is halacha. There is halakha and there is khumrah. Halakha is what the law requires of us. Khumrah is a stringency. Now I'm going to be very careful when I say this. Even though you want to be stringent and you want to stay away from your wife, like we're going to see the halakha right now over here, nevertheless, I'm going to strongly suggest, before you take upon yourself any stringencies, anytime you want, make sure you consult a rabbi, like your family rabbi, where you have at least a neither rabbi. Ask him what to do. A lot of times you'll be surprised, Rabotai. In these situations, it really depends on the couple. Does the wife want to be with him? You understand? Can the guy hold himself back another day? So all these things, Rabotai, every little detail matters. So people shouldn't take up stringencies upon themselves if it's not required, unless you consult your local rabbi, where he really knows, he knows the family, where you and your wife, came to an agreement that whatever he says, we're going to do. So therefore, nobody's going to get upset with one another. It's very, very important. Nevertheless, Rabotai, halakhically speaking, you don't have to separate from your wife. Nevertheless, Rav David Yosef Shlita gives us sound advice, and he says, but nevertheless, he says it's good to be stringent. in such a situation, in this similar situation, like what? Shera'at dam bebedikat ha'ed, where a woman saw blood through the checking with the cloth, kodem vesta, prior to her original vest that she was anticipating. So let's just say like this, Rabotai. Let's say a woman wanted to do the bedika on the first of the month, and her vested was coming, let's say 12 hours later, or 24 hours later, but it's close to the vested. If she did a bedika a day before when she's anticipating to get a period, it means that, it's probably coming. So Rav David Yosef is telling us like this: it's good to be stringent next time around. Also separate from her 2 days. The day that you did the bedika on, and also her anticipated time. That means you're not going to be able to sleep with your wife in those 2 periods of time. So one more time. It is good to be stringent in this situation. Where she saw blood with the checking of the cloth, kodem vesta, prior to her vested. It's not like she did the bedika a week ago. No, she's doing the bedika, prior to the vested. Say 12 hours before the vested, 24 hours before the vested, maybe even a day and a half, 2 days before the vested. So that's what he's telling us over here. It's good to be stringent. And to separate from her, gam be'onat bedikad ha'ed, v'gam be'onat shebar adam b'hargasha. You want to separate from your wife at the period where she checked herself with the cloth, and also at the period where she saw the blood with hargasha. So let's put it like this, Rabotai. Let me make it a little bit simple. A woman, let's say she saw in the first of the month blood. Let's say she saw during the day, right? She did the bedika. Before sunset, she saw. Now, the night, she really had blood coming with a sensation. We're going to tell you next time around, whatever that day is, or the Ona Benonit, or the Vesaflaga, you're going to have to separate from your wife the day and the night, right? One period for the checking of the bedika, and one period for the blood that she saw with a sensation. But again, we have to recall that it's good to be stringent. Again, I would strongly advise to consult your local rabbi before being stringent when it comes to nida laws. To making sure your wife is happy is a very, very big mitzvah. And if you're going to be stringent on her account, not necessarily you're going to be doing a mitzvah, but rather you might actually be doing an avera. It's going to be, right, a mitzvah habab be'avera. It's a mitzvah that's coming through doing an avera. What's the avera? Maybe the wife doesn't understand. Maybe she wants to be with you. Maybe chas v'shalom, the guy is going to want to be a tzaddik, and he's not going to want to be with his wife, and then he could spill semen in vain. Again, please consult your local rabbi. Okay. All right, so we did this. Okay. Now he gives us one more case, and he says like this: Ulam, however, imra'at dam bebedikat ed. If a woman saw blood with the checking of the cloth, ula'acher ona or shtei onot ra'at dam behargasha, and after one period or 2 periods have passed, she saw blood with a sensation. Ve'era ken shalosha pa'amim, and this happened 3 times. B'shalosha havestot. Rabotai, this is wrong. This is not this. It's supposed to be vestot. 1 second. So one more time. Ve'era ken, and this happened. Shalosha pa'amim, it happened 3 times. B'shalosha havestot achnot, in the last 3 periods. Like this. On the first of the month, she checks herself. I'm just giving you an example. On the first of the month, she did a bedika with the cloth. She saw blood. 24 hours later, or 12 hours later, one period or two periods later, she sees blood with hargasha. It happened one time. Fine. Next month, the same thing. She did a bedika with the cloth. She saw blood without hargasha, without a sensation. But then again, 12 hours later or 24 hours later, meaning one period or two periods later, she saw blood with a sensation. That's the second time already. And then one more time, the following month, she went ahead and she went ahead and again she did a bedika. And this time, she saw blood on the head without a sensation. And again, a period later, or two periods later, she saw blood with a sensation. Since it happened 3 consecutive times at 3 periods, what are we going to tell you? צריך בעלה לפרוש ממנה לאחר מכן כשתגיע העונש שבה ראת על ידי בדיקת העד. Over here, Rabotai, we're going to tell you that this is already halacha where she has to go ahead and she has to separate from him. Rabotai, I'm going to read this one more time. צריך בעלה לפרוש, the husband needs to separate, ממנה from her, לאחר מכן from then and on, כשתגיע העונש הבא ראתה על ידי בדיקת העד. When she's going to reach the next period around, where she's anticipating the periods to come, but over there, Rabotai, she's going to start now taking into consideration even the period, 1 period or 2 periods before, where she went ahead and she checked herself with the ed. So up to now, I'll make it very simple. We'll do the review, but I'll make it very simple. Over here we're saying that check with the bedika cloth, halachically speaking, you don't ever have to worry about that day. That's halakha, right over here, minadin. I don't have to worry. Over here is giving us sound advice, but nevertheless, it's still good to be stringent and separate from her, even on the day where she checked herself with the cloth and she saw blood without a sensation. Separate from that period, and then also separate from the period where she saw the blood with a sensation. But now comes Rav David Yosef and he says, one second. But if this happened, where she checks with a bedika cloth, where she has no sensation, she sees blood, and then a period one period later or 2 periods later, she gets a blood with a sensation, and this happened 3 consecutive times, Rav David Yosef Shlita says, Tzarich ba'ala lifrosh. Now the husband, the following time, has to separate from her once the period where she did the checking of the bedika that day, that period when it comes, he has to stay away from her. He's obligated. So he's not going to only be obligated to stay away where she saw the blood with a sensation, but now he's obligated to stay away from the period where she checked herself and she saw blood on the cloth without a sensation. So basically, over here we're telling you that you should be stringent. Over here we're telling you halakha. Over here we're telling you this that I told you is good to be stringent. That's as long as she didn't see 3 consecutive periods. But if she saw it 3 times, then we're going to tell you it's halakha that you have to separate from her, and it's no longer a good thing to do. All right, Rabotai, let me just do this one more time, just make sure that people have it. The one disadvantage of working like this is you can't see who's watching, so you can't really tell if people are understanding or not, and this has to be very clear. Okay. One more time. Ulam, however, imra atadam bebedikat ha'ed. If a woman saw blood through checking with the cloth, and after 1 period or 2 periods, the woman saw blood with a sensation, and this happened 3 times in the last 3 periods. Like I explained, she did a bedika, no sensation, but she saw blood. But then, let's say 1 period later, 12 hours later, she sees blood with her hargasha. If this happened like this 3 times consecutive in the last 3 periods, where right before her period, she does the bidika, and she saw blood without a sensation, and then she sees blood with a sensation, Rav David Yosef Shlita tells us, Tzarich bala lifrosh memena la'achar miken. The husband needs to separate from her from then and on. He has to separate from her on that period where last month she did the bidika, whatever day or date, whatever that was, he's gonna have to separate from her even on the period of the checking of the cloth. And also, let's say she didn't see, now he has to go ahead and he has to separate from her also from the period where she last time received the blood with a sensation. Okay, a review. If a woman sees blood on a bedika cloth, but does not feel it leave her body, then a full ona or two later, a 12-hour period or two, again, if it's only a perfect day, she sees blood with a feeling, which means hargasha. She becomes impure from the time of the first bidika. But that first sighting does not establish a fixed time for her future cycles. Okay, so this is very important. So I want you guys to know this. Remember this. Just like we saw by the Ketem in part 20, the same thing is going to apply over here. The first sighting does not establish a fixed time for her future cycles. Therefore, her husband only needs to separate from her next month at the time she later felt the blood, not at the time she first found it on the cloth. However, Rabotai, this is the sound advice that Rabbi David Yosef wanted to give us. However, it is recommended to be stringent. If she saw blood on a bidika before her usual time of seeing, the husband should separate both at the time of the bidika and at the time she later felt the blood. Okay, Rabotai, right over here. This is also very important to know. The husband should separate both at the time of the bidika and at the time she later felt the blood. Again, all this right over here, Rabotai, is recommended. It's only a stringency. Yes? This is very crucial. If the same pattern, blood first by bidika, and then by feeling a short while later, right? First she gets the blood with the bidika cloth, and then a while later, a period or two later, she has a feeling of sensation of blood coming down. If this happens 3 consecutive times, then it does create a set pattern. From then on, her husband must separate from her at the time she previously saw blood on the bidika as well. So he's going to be afraid the following month for that day or date of the bidika when she did it. She didn't get blood. Now he also has to worry for the last time where she got her blood with a sensation. Rabotai, have a great day. Baruch Adonai L'Olam. Amen.